Hi everyone, welcome along to episode 26 of Percussion Discussion. Hope you're all well out there, and don't forget you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which means you won't miss any of the videos, and also you can give our Facebook page a like, and that will do the same thing. I hope you're enjoying them. Anyway, on to today's guest, a terrific drummer who's had an incredible career so far, but alongside his drumming career, he also has another career that runs in parallel. He's a fantastic artist. So we're going to be talking about drums and a little bit of art as well, and a little section of where the two have combined. I can tell you're interested already. So this gentleman was one of the founding members of Damn Yankees, alongside Ted Nugent, of course. And for the last 23 years, he has been the drummer for the incredible band Lynyrd Skynyrd. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the show Mr. Michael Cartellone.
Thank you, Matty. I really appreciate the invite.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's great to speak to so many different drummers from so many different genres. We have a very mutual friend, Mr. Simon Kirk, who's arranged this. So thank you, Simon. First of all, we'll get that in. I'm sure we'll talk a little about Simon later on as well. So it's a strange. Yeah, it's a strange time at the moment. Michael, are you managing to keep busy? Are you doing any drumming at the moment?
I am doing drumming in as much as I go to my drum room, which is about a 10-minute drive from my New York City apartment, which is very much appreciated by all of my neighbors. So I do stay in shape. Every now and then I'll run the Skynyrd show and play along with it just to make sure that it's still there. I also have a recording project here in New York City with some friends. It's a little too soon for me to talk about that, but maybe a little bit down the line we could do another one of these, and I can tell more. So I've been doing my fair amount of drumming. However, the other half of my life, which is fine art painting, which happens right in the position where I'm sitting right now,
Sure.
Is basically what I've done nonstop since the entire touring industry, stopped.
Yeah. So I guess in many ways, it's been not a blessing. I'd never use that word for what's gone on in the world, but personally for you, it's given you time, I guess, you wouldn't normally have had to paint.
True. I have not been home for this amount of time in 25 years. And, I do carry art supplies and paint in hotel rooms during tours, if it's a long tour. However, the past few years, Skynyrd has been doing weekend shows.
Yeah.
So I'm home every week for a couple days, and then I sit here in this corner. So it really is an ongoing thing with the music and the art coexisting. Yeah. However, in the past year, since the touring stopped, I've been able to crank out a bunch of work. And it's the equivalent of, work that would have taken me years to accumulate.
Yeah.
So I've made lemonade out of the lemons.
I think you have to, don't you, in this situation? There's no, that's all you can do. How do you find, if you're on the road and you're taking your painting equipment with you, for want of better words, is it hard? Do you lose any focus if you can do a little bit of a painting and you have to pack it all away, move to somewhere else? Or can you keep the focus on? Can you keep that focus?
Yes, I can keep the focus. I've done the painting and the drumming together since I was a little kid. So really for me, it's just putting on the hat, taking off the hat. They're always just right here. Yeah. And at a moment's notice, I can just stop one and start the other.
Sure. Can I ask which came first, the drums or the painting?
The painting came first.
Did it really?
It did. Painting at 4, at art school at 4, drumming at 9.
Okay, so quite a bit later for drums then.
Yeah. And for most of my childhood, I had planned and envisioned a fine art career. Yeah.
Isn't that incredible that you've succeeded in both incredibly well to a high level?
I'll tell you, Matty, on any given day, I'm a drummer who paints or a painter that plays drums. It all depends on when I pick up the phone.
That's incredible, isn't it? It really is. I mean, look, we're going to talk some more about the painting. You shared with me a video, which we'll talk a little bit about a little bit later on. And we'll share that video as well. But if we can go back to 9 years old, how did your introduction to drums happen?
I have an older cousin named Bert who played drums. And whenever we would go visit Bert and his family, I used to beg him to play his kit. Every now and then he would let me. Mm-hmm. My parents saw that, he must be really interested in this. So as a 9-year-old, my parents decided to support this interest, and they bought me a little rubber pad, the square rubber pads.
Yeah.
And I started taking lessons with Bert's teacher.
Okay.
I would have loved to have said I was sitting in front of the TV watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, but I was only 1 year old at the time.
Yeah.
The Beatles, however, very quickly became part of my story because I have some older sisters who had Beatle records in the house, saw the Beatles perform in concert. And once I got that first drum kit, about a year after the rubber pad, I immediately started playing along to A Hard Day's Night. Yeah. Immediately. There's a picture of me with my first kit, and you see propped up behind me the A Hard Day's Night LP.
I've done so many interviews, and the Beatles regardless of the age of the drummer, the Beatles are there in the background every time, every single time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you listen to what Ringo did on those records, it's just quintessential drumming for the song.
Absolutely.
And as a young drummer trying to learn how to play to a song, because my teacher was a by-the-book rudiments guy.
Yeah.
Traditional grip, rudiments, read the music. My teacher never taught me how to play a kit.
Yeah.
It was simply just playing along with Beatle records and then having Ringo just did a triplet. Yeah. Click. I know what a triplet is because it's on page, and then it just all went like this for me.
Yeah. So the two parts of the education went hand in hand, really. Then you had the technical, the chop side from your teacher, and the general playing side from records. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So how long before you got into your first band? I mean, I should say before this, obviously Ringo's an influence. Any other drummers of the time that, you were thinking, I want to play like this guy? And
yes, it's a quite interesting progression. So I went from playing along with my sister's Beatle records to a couple years later playing along to my brother's Yes records.
total
those are definitely two different things. And to this day, Bill Bruford is still my favorite drummer.
Yes, absolutely.
I did my first professional performance at age 11.
Wow.
My drum teacher that I mentioned earlier had a polka band on the side. He played accordion. Mm-hmm. And one of the incentives to his students was, when you get good enough, you can sit in with the polka band. So when I was 11, I played at a bar with my drum teacher's polka band, and I got paid $3 that night. I should mention I have worked for less since.
$3 as an 11-year-old. I mean, that's not so bad, is it?
Well, yeah, I would have to look at inflation, but I guess that's a lot of money for.
Yeah. Can you remember what you spent it on?
Probably candy.
Yeah, I was thinking that might have been the answer. So, did you play? I guess you played all the way through school and the school jazz bands, and did you do all of that thing?
All of it, marching band, which I loved because it was all about, the traditional grip, playing the snare drum, the rudiments. I was in my element. I love the math of drumming. Love it, love it.
Yeah.
So yes, all throughout school, every music program offered, I did. And then by the time I finished high school, which is age 17 here in the States, I was already playing 4 nights a week in a band playing top 40 music, earning money. So the trail was well blazed.
Times are very different now, aren't they? I mean, I appreciate that the current times are very, very strange, but I don't think there's that facility anymore to be playing so young and earning money, is there? I don't think there is.
Not that I'm aware of. The whole game has changed. I was fortunate enough as my recording career kicked in. That was still when, you received big budgets from major record labels and went into a huge recording studio. And then you went on a big concert tour. And that's not necessarily what, contemporary bands follow. It's just because the business changed so much over the years.
Of course it has. I mean, that playing, gigging so much early on, it really does shapes things ahead for you, doesn't it? It gives you the skills, it gives you the fitness to play.
Right. As a 17-year-old, I was playing 4 hours a night, 4 nights a week. And, that experience is priceless.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I learned then, I'm still using now.
Yeah.
Everything about, learning how to be consistent and learning on how to warm up and how to take care of your gear, all of it. So it was all invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that's missing these days. I think it is, and it's through no fault of the young drummers these days. They just don't have that facility anymore, and it's a shame.
Yeah. It is a shame. I'm quite certain that you don't miss what you've never had. So, a 17-year-old guy is doing his thing and, is achieving the things that he wants to and she want to achieve their way.
Absolutely.
It's all good.
Yeah. But gigging for that, especially for 4 hours a night, that is just, that you can't be taught that. That's no lesson will ever show you that. You've just got to do it and get in and it shows you a bit about the business as well, doesn't it? Getting paid and sometimes having to chase your money and all important stuff. But
you learn all of it. You learn not to leave your wallet in the dressing room and on and on and on.
Wallet goes on the snare drum, doesn't it? Depending on the song.
It's the perfect muffle.
So let's jump forward a few years. And let's jump just before it. Before Damn Yankees, what were you doing? Were you still playing professionally? Were you still gigging and recording?
Yes. So I grew up in a town called Cleveland, Ohio, which has a very nice rock and roll history to it. And by the time I had turned 22 years old, I had already been playing on the club circuit for a handful of years.
Sure.
Had logged a fair amount of hours. Going back to the Bill Bruford influence, a lot of the music that I grew up listening to as a, growing, learning, yearning musician was British progressive rock.
Yeah, sure.
So one of my favorite bands, Bill Bruford, was the first drummer in, and that was UK.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine you know who that is.
Yes, I've got a fair good idea, yes.
Yeah. So I had begun corresponding with Eddie Jobson.
Yeah.
Eddie was living here in the States at the time, and he had just released a solo album called Zinc, the Green Album. It was on Capitol, 1983. And I had heard that he was thinking about doing a second album. So I just sent him an audition package to his fan club. Mm-hmm. We started corresponding. We eventually arranged an audition. So when I was 22, I put the drums in the car and drove up to the East Coast and auditioned for Eddie, and we really hit it off. Mm. And when I was 22, I moved to New York to work with Eddie on a recording project that was intended to be the second Zinc album. Yeah. And I was just fine because here I'm now working with one of my musical heroes who had previously worked with Bill Bruford and one of my other favorite drummers, Terry Bozzio. Mm. So it was an incredible experience. And over the next few years, we demoed up several songs with the intention of doing the second Zinc album, which was going to be called Pink. Yeah. That album never did come out. However, Eddie and I wrote and recorded a song together called Think Zinc. And I ended up using that song when I started to do drum clinics for Pearl. Yes. And as you would guess, it's a very drumistic song. Most of it is in 7/8. Yeah. It's a pretty fun thing to play. So, the beginning of my career was, in my eyes, progressive rock. Yeah, absolutely. It was what I had set my sights on. I landed this thing with Eddie Jobson, moved up to New York, started working with him. And the scenario with Eddie was just a recording project. And I was, working a day job at the time, using my art skills. Mm. I was working at a children's clothing company in New York City in the garment district. And I was in the art department. And I was painting little bunnies and duckies on clothing.
Paying the bills.
Well, all of my other drummer buddies are landing these tours and going out on the road. And I spoke to Eddie and I said, all of my friends are landing these tours, I'm getting kind of antsy. He goes, you should do that. You should try and land a tour. You need to get that kind of experience under your belt. Mm. We're still doing our recording project, so it's not really going to stop what we're doing. And so I then officially started going after a tour. Yeah. And the first audition that I landed was with Tommy Shaw, who's the guitarist and vocalist of Styx. Yes. At this time, 1986, mm-hmm. I'm sorry, 1980, it was 86. Tommy is not in Styx, but he's doing a solo career. Yeah. He had just released an album. An English drummer who you may know, Tony Beard.
Yes, I know exactly.
Tony Beard had played drums on this record. It was called Ambition. Yeah. Tommy auditions here in New York City to put together the band. Mm-hmm. I go in, I audition, I land the gig. That band ends up going out as the opening act for Rush. Wow. Okay. On their Hold Your Fire tour. Yeah. And for 4 months, we play every large arena in the United States. And this is not an exaggeration. I was painting a bunny I got a phone call at that office, and they said, you have to take a leave of absence. You're going on tour as the opening act for Rush, and next week you're playing at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
Truly baptism by fire.
Yes, that's amazing, isn't it?
It was amazing. And Neil took a liking to me. God bless him, rest in peace.
Yes.
And we began a friendship that that lasted,
to
the rest of his life.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So did that band morph into Damn Yankees then at this point? Did you carry on? And
it was a scenario where one thing led to the other.
Sure.
At this point, upon finishing the 2-year stint in the Tommy Shaw band,
mm-hmm.
Tommy was thinking, well, maybe I should think about doing something else. He thought about going back to Styx. But before he did, a record company executive named John David Kolodner, a famous guy,
yeah,
who had a knack for putting people together.
Oh, yes.
Kolodner had said, I just got off the phone with Nugent. He's looking for something to do as well. Why don't you, Tommy, and Ted get together and write? So Ted flew into New York. They got together in the Tommy Shaw band rehearsal room where conveniently my kit was sitting. So Tommy calls and says, hey, would you come in, just so we have somebody to play off of?
Sure.
And I said, sure, and I hung up the phone and I thought, this is really going to be fun. And it's never going to work. And to make a long story short, not long after that, Jack Blades became involved, bass player, singer from Night Ranger.
Yep.
When Jack came in, everything just kind of clicked.
Yeah.
Jack became kind of the perfect balance in between Tommy and Ted.
Yeah, two big characters there.
Yeah. But they all shared this R&B underlying feel.
Sure.
And, and I was the new guy.
Mm.
The only thing I had at that point was, I did a 4-month tour opening for Rush.
Yes.
But I had never been on any, big time recordings. It was all local things. But it just really clicked. And fortunately, they did not get a 4th famous guy. And they kept the young unknown guy who was willing to, what do you guys need? And been able to deliver it. We ended up signing with Warner Brothers, and 3 million albums later, it was a pretty wonderful way to start my recording career.
So really, as you say, as a relative unknown, you've gained the drum seat in a it's a super group, whichever way you look at it, isn't it? That must have been a pinch yourself moment.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Matty, there were many times where I was thinking, yep, it's about time that I'm getting kicked out of this. But because I was what they needed in that drum role, and I was young and hungry and moldable, much like I was with Jobson.
Yeah.
I said, Eddie, turn me into the drummer you need. I did the same thing with Damn Yankees.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, the guy that, loved to play in odd time signatures, all of a sudden found himself in a commercial heavy metal band with, top 40 hits. It wasn't at all what I had envisioned. And let me tell you, there would be times where we would be rehearsing and I would, just because it was a natural thing for me to do, I would start transposing and I would start playing in 5 against their 4. And they would look at me and go, Michael, remember who you're playing with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it took a while for me to kind of, okay. I still do it every now and then.
Really?
I'll still, even within the context of Skynyrd, I will still slip back into that progressive thing. And Gary Rossington will kind of look back at me and I'll go, yeah, you're right.
I mean, the ability in that band was just,
I remember I had the albums, and the vocal ability was ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
I honestly believe that Ted Nugent is one of the most underrated. Maybe not in the States, in the UK, you don't hear so much, but I just think every time I hear his voice, it's like, wow, listen to that, incredible.
It was really great because everything with Damn Yankees was each person brought something to the party. And when it joined forces, it was powerful. And I will tell you, that first album came out 31 years ago.
Was it really?
It is still selling.
Yeah.
And we still get royalties from Damn Yankees all these years later.
That's a good sign.
It struck a chord. And, the four of us have kept in touch, still very friendly all these years later.
Yeah.
We all still get asked, will there be a Damn Yankees reunion?
Yeah.
And the simple answer is, never say never.
Absolutely.
Who knows in this crazy business?
But songs like, High Enough was always a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. I was always into the slightly heavier stuff, but if none of my friends were listening, I'd quite happily think this. I'd play that over and over, mainly for the vocal. It's just, did you do backing vocals as well, Michael?
Not on the record.
Okay.
And nor would I even, walk near a microphone with Tommy Shaw and Jack Blade singing, because those harmonies in High Enough, that's Tommy and Jack and Tommy and Jack and Tommy and Jack and Tommy and Jack and Tommy. However, live, I would sing.
Yeah.
And I did my best to cover the easiest harmony part that they would throw my way.
It takes, because it was loaded with harmony and it was just so rich and big. It takes some doing to recreate that live, and we're talking in a time without click tracks and all the fake stuff. It was you either could do it or you couldn't.
Correct.
Yeah.
And because they were such seasoned veterans, they knew how to deliver that every night. They sang great.
Wow.
And hopefully I didn't make it sound bad.
I'm sure you didn't. Now, I was looking through your CV, as it were, your online CV. That's easy enough to find on certain sites, and a name came up that I hadn't seen for a while. Accept.
Yes.
Wow, I didn't realize you'd played for those. Great band.
Great band. Damn Yankees had, over the course of a 5-year period, recorded 2 albums and then did 2 very long tours. And then we kind of went off different directions and started doing little outside projects. But we never actually disbanded.
Yeah.
That band never broke up. It just kind of went on a hiatus.
Yes.
So very quickly into that hiatus, I received a phone call, and it was Wolf Hoffman, the wonderful guitarist of Accept. And we happened to both be living in Nashville, Tennessee at the time. Very unlikely place for 2 heavy rock guys, but they were looking for someone to do some demos. My Damn Yankee resume apparently had gotten its way to Wolf. And so I did some demos with them, which then turned into recording an album called Predator.
Yes. That
album came out in 96. And then they asked me to do a world tour. And it was so fun. So fun. Had a great time.
Yeah.
And, Wolf and I have stayed friends all these years. I did a solo record with Wolf, which was, he had taken orchestral music and done kind of like the Guitar Hero metal versions of them.
Fabulous. So, great band.
And worked with Michael Wagner, who had produced that Accept album. And then Michael Wagner over the years has sent me some other work. Of course, he's a very well-established producer who has done tons of great stuff. So, the Accept thing was a really, really fun tour. I wasn't prepared for Fast as a Shark, mind you. That's a beast.
I mean, is it Fast as a Shark and Balls to the Wall? They were the two, the massive hits, weren't they? And it's great stuff. And, you know, I had no idea. And I thought, wow, look at this. This is... So look, let's fast forward a few years, and you joined what could be described as one hell of a band with Lynyrd Skynyrd. How did that come about, Michael?
Yes. Interestingly, it is another Damn Yankees connection.
Yeah.
And that is at one point during Damn Yankees, we happened to be playing in Florida, and Johnny Van Zandt, the singer, had come to our show. His daughters were fans of Damn Yankees at the time, and we met him backstage. And then, as it happens, you know, you run into each other over the years.
Sure.
You've overlapped in the same city. You happen to be in the same hotel, whatever it might be. So socially, I knew the Skynyrd guys over the years.
Yeah.
So fast forward, it's now 1998. I've just finished a world tour with John Fogerty, playing all of that wonderful Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yes, amazing.
Music. And Skynyrd were recording a new album in Nashville, where I was living at the time. And Ron Nevison was producing that Skynyrd record. Ron Nevison had produced both Damn Yankee albums.
Yes.
Kenny Aronoff had been hired to play drums on that Skynyrd record. I had just replaced Kenny. Well, I shouldn't say replaced. Kenny was in Fogerty's band and then left.
Yes.
And then I auditioned for that role and landed the role. So there were all these kind of odd overlaps that had happened. Nevison called and said, look, you know, Kenny just finished tracking the drums. You know, he's still here. Why don't you come down to the studio? You know all of these guys. So I went down to the studio just to hang out. And then Ron Nevison said, you know, we need percussion for this record. Since you're home, I'll hire you to come in and do all the percussion.
Sure.
Which I did. And then the Skynyrd guy said, you know, we're getting ready to go out on tour. Would you be interested in the gig? Well, it just so happens at the time, they were managed by the same guy that managed Tommy Shaw. So the manager was connected through a Damn Yankees scenario. Yeah. The producer was connected. It was all just kind of one of those, you know,
written
I was in the
right
place at the right time.
Yes. Wow.
And, you know, they, you know, they asked me to learn a couple songs, and we just got together one day at a rehearsal room to play. They hadn't brought in other drummers to audition. It was just let's hear how it sounds.
Yeah.
And apparently it sounded good enough, because here we are 23 years later.
That's a long time, isn't it? You know, it says a lot about the band. You know, a lot of bands don't last that long in their entire career without, I mean, they've had, gosh, almost 20 years before that, 18 years before that, something like that. A long time. Yeah,
the band, well, I mean, they started Lynyrd Skynyrd in, I think, 1967.
Wow, okay.
You know, they were all teenage schoolmates.
So you must have had some fun with that band, because it's a huge band, isn't it? It's an enormous band. It really is.
It is. Yeah, it's been wonderful. You know, I still can look over at Gary Rossington while we're playing Freebird, and he's doing that signature slide part, and still kind of think, yeah, this is really pretty cool, isn't it? All these years later, it is not lost on me how wonderful it's been. And, you know, let's hope that, you know, that things can get back on track, and the vaccine rollout can continue, and it can be safe enough to, at some point, you know, that we can all go back to work.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, a great album for me is God and Guns. It's just, it kind of fitted in with the other music at that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The band have morphed, haven't they?
I can understand. I can understand what you mean by that. Gary Rossington, Johnny Van Zant, Ricky Medlock, they're the main writers.
Yeah.
And they keep their ears open to what's going on.
Yeah.
And they have really, in the, we'll call it the new era of the band, have written some wonderful stuff. And keep in mind, in a way, writing new songs for Lynyrd Skynyrd, you've got Freebird and Sweet Home Alabama. You've got these iconic songs that are part of the show. Yeah. When that's got to be a bit daunting, writing new material when you think of, but they do it.
Well, they do. I mean, I think that album is absolutely superb. I remember when it came out and I listened to it on repeat for about 2 months. And
Now, have you seen the band live? Because we've certainly done our share of touring in the UK.
I'm embarrassed to say I haven't.
Next time you will.
I hope so. Yes. Well, there you go. I've been told I will. I shall be there.
Yes. There we go.
I've seen lots of YouTube footage, obviously, but it's not the same as it as being in front of,
Well, we just did. Let me see. We did Wembley Arena, not quite 2 years ago, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And we had a UK date penciled in for June 2020.
Right.
At the time they hadn't decided on the venue as of yet, but we were on our way again until everything changed. So we will be back.
I hope so.
No one that's going to be. But.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that, fingers crossed, as you say, things everyone gets vaccinated. Everyone looks after each other and we can get out and do it again and see some live shows. It would be amazing.
Yeah, well, look, we're all very anxious to play again. So
you hear this from everywhere, and it's I think everyone's gonna have to go out at the same time. I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's gonna be interesting.
The availability of the venues, that's the next trick.
Build some more venues.
Well, I will tell you that, I can only speak for the Skynyrd camp, but we have a 2021 calendar with a lot of penciled in tentative performances, but it's just simply too soon to know. Nobody knows,
do they, sadly?
Nobody knows.
Let's just keep them crossed. Well, look, let's go back to the artwork for a short while. You've had a long relationship with Pearl Drums. And I know, well, you tell us, you did something a little bit special for was it your 20th year or 30th year with Pearl? 30th year. Go on, just tell us.
Sure. So 2020 reached my 30th anniversary as a Pearl endorser. It began with Damn Yankees, of course, and it's been a wonderful relationship. So we thought that we should do something to commemorate the 30th anniversary, and because I'm a painter, the idea was, well, what about painting a drum? So the idea took shape that I was going to paint a snare drum, and Pearl just left it up to me. They said, what do you have in mind? And I said, it might be interesting if I were to do portraits of my hero drummers. And, we took a snare drum shell and we looked at how many open spaces are there as you go around.
Sure.
And there were only 6, which was hard to whittle down.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Most drummers have more than 6 favorite guys and gals. So that was one of the paintings that I did during lockdown, because now all of a sudden, I'm home. So I painted the 6 drummers, and I will tell you that I chose to paint them in the chronological order that they came into my life.
Right, I see.
So the very first drummer I painted was Ringo.
Mm-hmm.
The second drummer I painted was Bill Bruford.
Yeah.
The third drummer I painted was Terry Bozzio,
Mm-hmm.
which is a nice kind of, we're now tipping our hat back to the earlier part of our conversation.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we are. We are.
After Bozzio, the next drummer was Stuart Copeland.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if I were to just sit down and play at a kit right now without even just thinking, and another drummer would be able to hear, okay, so you like Bruford, Bozzio, and Stuart Copeland, right? Because it just kind of comes out. It's just like morph.
Yes.
After Stuart was John Bonham.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I should mention that my John Bonham awareness, of course, you know, I mean, I heard Zeppelin all throughout my childhood, but it was when I was about, you know, 21 years old, 22, that I finally heard Bonham.
Yes, yes.
And then just how much can I absorb?
Yeah, I see what you say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the sixth drummer is my wonderful friend, Neil Peart. God bless him, rest in peace.
Of course.
And just like with Zeppelin, I had always heard Rush tunes, but it was not until I was incredibly lucky enough to be the opening act for Neil, where I then sat on the side of the stage and watched him every night for 4 months, that I became, you know, monstrous fan. Not to mention what a wonderful man he was, and a great friendship that we had. You know, I will tell you that this is getting off topic a little bit, but it does tie into the painter aspect of who I am. Neil, as you know, was an author, and was kind enough, and a complete surprise to me, to actually mention me in a couple of his books. And in one of the books, he said something about, and you know, my friend Michael Cartellone, you know, he's the longtime drummer from Lynyrd Skynyrd, and then in parentheses he writes, which would surprise you if you knew him, because he's a sophisticated urbanite and a fine art painter. And I read that and I laughed out loud. I thought, yeah, you know, he
hit a point.
He saw me for who I am.
Oh, that's lovely.
So I'm very proud of this drum, Matty, and I will tell you that there is talk with Pearl of doing a very limited run.
Wow.
Reproducing that drum. And those would be sold for charity.
Oh, fabulous. Well, look, should we take a quick look at the drum?
Please.
Let's have a look. Here we go. Here's the drum. So there we have it, an amazing, amazing instrument with some amazing artwork. Now, do you mind if I ask a few questions, Michael, about how you went about this? First of all, did you paint it onto a wrap, and was the wrap applied, or did you paint it to the actual drum itself?
I painted on the actual drum itself.
Wow.
And I will tell you that we took a white lacquered finished drum, and then we sanded off just the top clear coat.
Sure.
To get just down to the white paint, which then had a matte finish to it.
Yes.
The matte finish would then hold the paint better, because to try and paint on a curved, very smooth, glassy surface would be very, very difficult.
Of course.
It was still tricky painting on that curved surface, even though it was a matte finish. But you know, I just did the portraits one at a time, and I had little pictures kind of taped up of whoever I happened to be working on at the time. And I will tell you that Terry Bozzio and I have been friends for a long, long time. I got to know him through Jobson, which isn't that surprising. So when I finished Terry's portrait, I took a photo and sent it to him, and he wrote back and he loved it.
Yeah.
I also am an acquaintance with Bill Bruford, also through Eddie Jobson.
Sure.
And I sent him his portrait. And have you ever met Bill Bruford?
I haven't. No, I haven't, sadly. No.
Okay. Bill's a fascinating guy. And his response is classic Bill Bruford. And he said, what a great portrait. Who is that? Oh, it's me, but it's about a half century younger. And by the way, it's too flattering.
I'll be honest with you. When I looked at the video first, Bill Bruford was the first one I spotted. Bonham and Bruford. They were the two really obvious ones for me. But all fabulous. I mean, obviously, painting on a curve must throw a few problems. You must have to look at the picture from a different kind of angle just to make sure things are.
It's trial and error.
Yeah.
The size of the face itself would be, about the size of my palm.
Yes.
So as I'm painting it, it does start to curve a little bit, but not as much as if it were larger, then you'd start to get this fisheye.
Yeah.
But it was tricky painting on the drum. There's no question about it.
Well, it really is a fabulous piece of artwork, and I hope that Pearl get to reproduce a few of these and make some, because I'd like to think they'd sell for quite a lot of money and make some money for charity, which is an incredible thing. All credit to yourself. Well, look, Michael, this has been a fascinating. I don't know how long a fascinating hour we've done, and I've enjoyed every second. And once again, thanks to our friend Simon Kirk for making this happen. So thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate it.
Before we go, one other thing. Speaking of Ringo, I'm in the middle. Well, I'm almost finished with a painting. It's Beatles, Fab Four era, and it happens to be right off screen. So here you go.
Fabulous. Look at that. Excellent.
Almost done.
I love the colors in it as well. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's meant to be like a 60s comic book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you know what, Michael? You've got too much talent for one man. It's not fair.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you, Maddie.
Look, thank you so much for your time. And let's hope we see you over in the UK soon with Skynyrd. And I promise this time I shall be there.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, buddy.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.